Hi YouTube, this is the Peaceful Prepper, and here is the next installment in my Bug Out Bag for Middle-Aged Woman with Knee Problems series. I apologize for how long this video is. I wanted to post this before my YouTube time gets somewhat reduced temporarily as I have a busy month ahead. And there are a few lighting issues, and it's not as concise as it could be, but if I started filming again, I would never get it done. I've done previous videos on my bug out planning and supplies that are in the playlist linked below. I have two tiers of the core items that I can walk with or put in a car. Today I'm going to focus on the Tier 2 bag, which is a wheeled suitcase. By some definitions, this may not be a bob at all, since it's designed to provide supplies at a bug out location rather than en route. If I'm bugging out on foot, my bug out location is likely to be the home of friends or family within a 10-mile radius of my apartment, but could also be an emergency shelter. If and when I store emergency kits at these locations, this kit may change. But until then, this kit is designed assuming that my location will not necessarily have any emergency supplies. One of the homes of friends didn't even have a real first aid kit until I gave them a small one. So I want this kit to include light first aid and food supplies to contribute to the group if there's no power, water filtration for the group, tools and personal protective equipment to help maintain safety if we have to do something in response to the emergency. These are the 12 functional areas or categories I use for all my kits. Since all the items are in a big open space suitcase except for the front pocket, I'm going to show items within the category together. They may not be packed exactly that way. I want to show you a couple of things about the bag and what's in the outside pocket, and then we'll go through the contents of the main pocket on the table. First, with the bag, obviously it's a rolling suitcase, so it has the handle that pulls up. Then it has a handle here, a handle on the side, and a handle on the bottom, which means if needed I could carry it like this over, if there's a short period where it's really bumpy terrain, it could be carried like this. I wouldn't probably want to do this for a long period of time, but it's a lot easier to do this than this. It also means if there are two of us, it's even easier. Each of us can have a handle. So in the easy access front pocket, some of this you saw in the earlier video. I have a poncho. I have a big contractor's bag, which if it's raining, I have another contractor's bag inside that's all the contents in the main compartment are in a contractor's bag to give them extra rain protection. But this can just be unfolded, slipped over top. I could just snip off the bottom and it has rain protection. Then I have a shemagh. I have a range of, actually I'll show you this at the table, but this is my personal protective equipment. Then this was in my Tier 1 video, the reflective vest, if I'm in traffic for safety. And then a range of maps. If I'm in my car, I have a lot more maps in my car, but if I take this and end up in someone else's car or anything, I have a map of the eastern part of the state, the western part of the state, and the general New England region. So these are the water-related supplies in my Tier 2 bob. I have a 40-ounce stainless steel bottle. I have just a stainless steel straw. It helps you get things out, and it can be boiled and sanitized. And some silicone piping that could be cut into different size straws, and obviously is very flexible. Then I have the Seychelles, I believe it's called the water bag. Like you fill this with the water you want to filter, hang it, attach these. This is their advanced filter, which deals with chemicals, heavy metals, as well as biological contaminants. So that's what I'm bringing in addition to my Tier 1 water supplies, so that it's possible to filter water for more than just one person, since I only have a straw in my backpack. And I'm bringing the instructions to this. And then in a dry bag, I actually haven't taken it out of its packaging just because it keeps it more compact, so I'm not sure what. But these are 12 of the 4-ounce water bags that have a long shelf life. So I have 48 ounces of water that I'm bringing with me, and then the capacity and containers to filter and store more. In my Tier 1 backpack, I have a Renovo Trio straw as a water filter, and wanted to share a quick warning. Prepper Agenda, a very new channel, has done a video after speaking to the Renovo company about the reduced shelf life if the package has been opened, and I'll link it below. I've done a separate video on my bug out bag food a while back, and there haven't been any really significant changes. That video is linked in the playlist below. These are the additional items that I have for lighting in addition to what I have in my Tier 1 bob, which is over here. So I have the Eureka Glide M1, and I believe this particular model is, they've moved on to another model. But what this does, I don't have the batteries in it. I keep the batteries outside so they don't corrode. But it can be either a flashlight or a lantern. So it has that flexibility. Then I have a squeeze light, that you can turn on. And I have to say, this is one of the best squeeze lights I've ever had. I've probably had it for 5 years. It doesn't get used a lot, but it really holds its charge. I almost never have to charge it to get the light to go on initially. And this actually, I didn't even buy it. It came from, I got it from my uncle from one of his conferences. And then I just bought this Ivation lantern, and it also is a crank lantern, but it's fairly bright, and it also changes to a lantern. And it has a low, a high, which is what this is, and off. I'm not sure. This is pretty new for me. Oh, it also can hang. It just pulls out. And this is plastic. I don't know how durable it's going to be. Well, so there's the low, the high. So it can be both just a light or a lantern. Then I also have this headband from Night Eyes. And it's just a very simple strap with this little container. Container isn't the right word. This little holder, which none of these lights fit in there. You need a relatively, you can just put a flashlight in here, but it has to be relatively thin. But the one of the hanging flashlights that I have on my backpack fits in here perfectly. So this would give me a second headlamp. I have a headlamp already in my backpack if either something went wrong with that, or I wanted to, someone was with me in a headlamp, they wanted a headlamp as well. I have a sleeping roll that attaches to the suitcase with a travel bungee and weighs about 8 pounds. If I need to leave the suitcase behind, I have the option of carrying the sleeping roll anyway. In this picture, it isn't as compressed as usual because I'm about to unload it to show you the contents, but the compression bag is a pretty cheap one, and I assume it's not waterproof. I haven't tested or anything, but I have it lined with a garbage bag to keep the contents dry. In the bedding roll, I have a contractor's bag that lines the bedding roll and a second one. I have an inflatable sleeping pad. I have the Big Agnes Air Core, and it's one of the thicker ones. It's 3¼ inches, which is to me a lot more comfortable than some of the thinner ones. I also have another skivvy roll. I have one in my Tier 1 backpack, and I have one here, a pair of jeans, and a long sleeve shirt. And then the sleeping bag, well, it's a sleeping bag, is the heavier sleeping bag from a 4-part military sleep system, which, if you're unfamiliar with them, has a lighter bag, a heavier bag. They can be used together. Then it has a waterproof bivvy and a stuff sack. The whole system together is very heavy, and I would use it at home, but not try to carry it. But so I use the heavier bag in the winter, and I'll switch to the lighter bag for my summer bug out system. In addition to the backpack and the items in the bedding roll, this is my little temperature adjustment bag. I have a warm hat, some warm gloves, and they can also be used as work gloves. A long neck warmer that can be pulled up over the ears and over the head. A few more toe warmers and hand warmers. If I need to cool myself off some, I have this hand fan, which actually works very well. And this headband that if you wet it, it adds to the cooling. It's one of those, some material that is supposed to be colder when wet than just a normal cloth and water. And I didn't look at this specifically, but I've done a video on the cooling towels that market themselves that way. In addition to the clothing that's in my bedding roll and Tier 1 backpack, I have an extra pair of shoes. These are just old sneakers, but they're a good backup. The shoes that I'll wear are more heavy duty, but these are sort of a backup second option. And then I have this Travel-On travel compression sack that I have the clothes in, which lets you compress things without using, oh, it's upside down, without using a vacuum or something, or a food saver or something like that. It doesn't stay absolutely airtight, but it does make it much easier for space. And in here I have a pair, I have underwear, a pair of wool socks, top and bottom long underwear, a pair of shorts, and a t-shirt. So they can be used as layers or something to sleep in, that kind of thing. And the way this works, if I just put everything in there, let's see if you can see. You pull it tight, which actually seals this, and then you roll as tightly as you can, and this is a one-way vent. And you have a fairly tight package that gives you a little more space. So here are my personal hygiene sanitation items. I have a packet of baby wipes, a roll of toilet paper, a camp towel from REI, and I've had this for a long time. Any kind of little towel, or really any microfiber towel, probably would be just as good and less expensive. I have an extra pair of reading glasses. I have a bag with menstrual products, an extra little garbage bag, and a pack of Kleenex in this. Then this is sort of my little sleep bag, which includes some earplugs, and these are the silicone ones, which until I started looking at earplugs, I had never liked these, but having experimented with them, I find to sleep in them, they're more comfortable and don't fall out in the middle of the night. And an eye mask. And then I have just it's a silk sleep sack or sleeping bag liner. And again, I've had this for a long time as well. And then I have this bag with lots of little things, which include some more suntan lotion. I burn very easily. Let's do this. Some hand sanitizer. A few extra wet ones. A tube of petroleum jelly. A tube of moisturizer, a small deodorant. This is a little cotton container that has a handkerchief in it. A couple of bug spray wipes, or I guess not spray, but bug wipes. Some lens wipes for my glasses. A mirror. Oh, I'm missing my travel toothbrush. Well, I have one of those folding travel toothbrushes and a couple more of the disposable toothbrushes. A small tube of toothpaste. A little squirt of Breath RX, which, yes, it's for breath, but it's also an antibacterial spray. And bacteria in your mouth is where you get the real problems. So I have this. And some people may be familiar with this, some not, but this is a tongue scraper. This is just a plastic one. And again, it really helps to keep the bacteria out of your mouth because your tongue is where a lot of the bacteria lives. I'm going to do a separate video on the contents of my first aid kit, since there are just a lot of details and it would make this video even longer. In addition to the communication supplies that I have in my Tier 1 backpack, I have a backup radio in the suitcase, and it's an Eaton FR160. I've had this for several years, so that there may be a new model out. But it's a weather radio. It has a light. It has a small solar panel. I wouldn't expect this to quickly charge it up, but it's nice to have some additional sources, but it's primarily a crank radio. Very smooth and easy to do, and it holds its charge quite well. I mean, this has been in my bag probably for a year, and the light is right there. It also can charge a USB device, although I haven't tested it out for my smartphone, but I wouldn't count on its being able to do a lot of charging. I may test it out more, but it's a good radio. And I'll show you the additional things probably over here, just to remind you that I already have in my Tier 1 Bob. So this is just a backup for that. These are the tools that are in my Tier 2 bug out bag, in addition to the tools that are in the Tier 1 backpack. So I have 100 feet of paracord, and it is the 550 Type 3. I have a WD-40 pen, a chunk of Gorilla Tape and a roll of electrical tape. I have a box of matches and some more cotton, a small pair of scissors. I have a small pry bar that I actually use, and I think it's great for getting out nails or, things that are sticking out, and is pretty strong. And I also I got both of these from County Com, and this, I think they call it the breacher bar, and it's not very big, and it's, very flat, so it packs well, but it's quite a hefty piece. So it couldn't replace a full size pry bar, but this would be very helpful in a lot of situations. Then I just have a collection of safety pins, paper clips, regular clips, and another, I think this is the P51 military can opener, 6 extra AAA batteries. Then I have a Leatherman, and I think this is the Blast. And there are lots of reviews for this to find out all the different pieces, but it has a lot of different tools on it. And then as just a backup cutting tool, I have this Gerber, and honestly I don't remember what this is called, and it's not written on there, but it's just a backup cutting tool, or if someone else is with me. I have this tiny, I think the plastic gives some weird reflection, so let me take it out. Just a little container of crazy glue. Then I have a voltage tester, and I don't have the batteries inside, so I carry them next to it. But particularly in an urban setting, I think it can be very useful if you're in a building and aren't sure, if there are wires around, or aren't sure about live voltage, to have something like this. And I have information about it. It's not something that I use all the time. I've used it once or twice, but well, I'll just. And then I have a collection of plugs that could charge, that if I have a power source, could charge a variety of devices. So, and I also have a stylus, because if I am able to use an iPhone or an iPad or something like that, I'm much more accurate with this. But I have one of those USB plugs that has interchangeable pieces. So I have a micro USB, a mini USB, Apple, is this 20 pin or 30 pin, and then the lightning plug that can all go in here, and then will plug into any USB source. And then I have an AC plug USB and a 12-volt plug for a car or any 12-volt source. I forgot to pull this out when I was reviewing the tools, but this is a very thin emergency tarp that I'm not going to take it out because it's all nicely folded, but it has the reflective material on one side, and it has little stakes that can go through the grommets if you're in some place where stakes would be helpful. In my personal safety category, these are the personal protective equipment that I have in the front of the bug out bag suitcase. I've made a decision not to share publicly on YouTube any choices I've made for personal defense, but I really appreciate the comments and suggestions that I've received about that. But that's why you're not seeing any here, because that's something that I've decided not to make public. So I have in here several N95 masks, both the regular masks and the N95 surgical masks, earplugs, another pair of, I have a very thin pair of work gloves in my bug out backpack that are very thin and light, but these are more substantial. So I have these in here, and also a pair of nitrile chemically resistant gloves. So I have some personal protection depending on what kinds of things I might encounter or have to do. In addition to the maps in my suitcase and the information in my Tier 1 backpack, which I'll list here, I have this little spiral information book, which has some first aid information, some survival information, just a lot of different things that I could use as a reference if there's something that I encounter unexpectedly and am not prepared for. I do not have any kind of personal information or money in my suitcase or bedding roll, because I think that's much more likely something in certain circumstances, there's a good chance it could be either left behind in my home, or I might start walking with it, but situation changes, I need to move faster, the terrain changes unexpectedly, and I just have to leave it behind. And I don't want any personal information that might be left behind or taken. In my Tier 2 Bob, I do have some things in the category of entertainment, mental health. I have a pack of cards, not cards that show you how to make common knots, which both are good information, but it's actually kind of fun. I keep this paracord tied to it, and it's sort of something to do that's useful to practice knots. And I'm bringing a Sudoku book, which I find Sudoku very calming, and then a little book on meditation. So here is a list of some of the more expensive items in this kit. I tried to remember most things that individually cost more than $10. A lot of these things I bought over the last few years and don't really completely remember where I bought them or how much they cost. I haven't included the first aid kit since I'll cover that in a later video. The camp towel and the sleep sack I already owned, and you can find something equivalent for less money. If I was purchasing them just for this kit, I probably wouldn't have spent so much money on them. I spent about $200 just on the sleeping items, and I was lucky to find one of the 4-part military sleep systems for $75 a few years ago. If you aren't familiar with them, there are lots of video reviews on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. I'd really appreciate any comments or suggestions you have to improve this kit. Please like, comment, and share. Be safe, be happy.